Davy. Awesome. Welcome to Davy's Awesome Movies, where I review the styles of movies I love, the alternative B-rated cold style flicks. This week we're getting to the fourth, kind of fifth, in the Psycho series. This one is technically the last in the original run, and it came out in 1990. And directed by Mick Garris. And written by Joseph Stefano, one of the writers of the original Psycho. And produced by Hilton A. Green, George Zaloom, and Les Mayfield. Made by Universal Television and Smart Money Productions. And distributed by Showtime Network. Ladies and gentlemen, Psycho 4, The Beginning. The movie opens with a talk radio show going on at the time, and the guest is a Raymond Lynette, a man who is on parole after murdering his mother. He is also played by Kurt Paul, who was not only Anthony Perkins' stunt double in the previous two Psycho films, but in the little spin-off film Bates Motel, he actually played Norman Bates in the flashbacks. It's kind of cool. The host of the show is Fran Ambrose, played by CCH Pounder, and her other guests are Raymond Lynette's grandfather and a psychologist, Dr. Leo Richmond, who specializes in matricide. He even wrote a book about matricide.
That's what they call murdering your mother.
Okay, well, that wasn't my first guess. Before this movie, if you would have asked me, hey, what is matricide? I would have assumed that's that crime when you cut the do not remove tag off the mattress. Dr. Leo Richmond talks about the first case he ever worked on, which clearly is Norman Bates. And the first impression we get is, okay, maybe this is supposed to be Dr. Fred Richmond's son. But then later we kind of learn that this isn't supposed to be his son, this is supposed to be him. Maybe they should have paid attention a little bit and just called him Fred. And this impresses the station manager, Mike Halavico, played by John Landis. Yes, that John Landis. Director of movies like American Werewolf in London and Coming to America. Raymond Lynette and his grandfather have to leave as a condition of Raymond's parole, but the doctor stays behind and they take some calls. The first caller doesn't want to give out his real name.
You can call me Ed.
Fitting, since Norman Bates is based off of the real-life serial killer Ed Gein. Ed says he's got some insight because he's killed his mother before.
And now I'm going to have to do it again.
I'm guessing he's still not cured. As Ed, Norman goes into the story of the first young girl he killed as his mother. And we get a flashback to young Norman Bates, played by Henry Thomas, who most of you would remember as Elliot from E.T. This girl, Holly, for some reason really wants Norman Bates. Norman tells her to wait in the parlor while he goes and attends to some guests at the motel. She decides to sneak into his house. You can already imagine how bad this is going to go. Norman goes in his house to find her.
I was just going to give you a little scare, that's all.
Why would you want to scare a creepy kid like that? That'd be like saying, yeah, I want to have a cocktail with Jim Jones. She asks to see his room, and once she sees it, she decides to show him something.
Unhook me?
This is the only time that this particular actress, Sharon Camille, has ever been nude. In an interview, she said she didn't normally do nudity, but she didn't object just because it wasn't gratuitous. Apparently her boyfriend, though, did object. Apparently after seeing this movie, they broke up over it. I'm just saying you kind of have to accept that you're dating an actress. Might happen. She gets in his bed and Norman goes to check on his mother.
Get that whore out of my house.
She's not a whore, Mother.
After a moment, she does come to look for Norman. After this scene, she went to her trailer and washed all the fake blood off of her. She said looking at her shower drain, it was reminiscent of the first Psycho, with Janet Leigh. Dr. Richmond decides to ask some probing questions, which upset Norman, so he hangs up on him. Good job, Dr. Richmond. Now no one's going to know who he wants to kill. Then again, it is a talk radio show, so nobody will probably know anyways. Nobody listens to those. Almost immediately, Norman's wife calls, which he now has since the third movie. His wife, Connie. She talks about picking up his birthday cake, because apparently it is his birthday, and asks, though, if he's still upset about the news he got earlier that day, but doesn't tell us what. Then, after this, Norman decides to go ahead and call the radio station again and give them the story of killing his mother, Norma. And we finally see a Norma Bates. In this movie, she is played by the legendary actress Olivia Hussey. Rest in peace. Apparently, she passed away last December. As he's telling the story, we get some insight on what it was like with Norma growing up. For example, when she found out that Norman had some obscene magazines and made him get rid of them.
No! Go as you are. Maybe the rain will wash some of the dirt out of your system.
You may be wondering how obscene were these magazines. It was basically like he had a bunch of Victoria's Secret catalogs. Again, this would have been taking place in like the 50s. That would have been very obscene. But as he's talking, we see other instances of Norma freaking out seemingly for no reason. Or at least not good reasons. Apparently she was very, very troubled. The one time where I can imagine pretty much any mom would freak out, but a good mom would just get over it. Norma and her son are roughhousing, and as they're roughhousing, something comes up.
We'll forget that you even have one of those things.
Okay, I'm gonna give women a little insight here. Sometimes that doesn't happen because we're actually aroused. That happens for a variety of reasons. Like friction, or we're sitting in an awkward position. Heck, sometimes they pop up for no other reason than a good stretch. Norma locks him in a closet.
You're gonna stay locked in there until you learn not to say no to your mother when she tells you you're a girl.
Now he's trapped in the closet. And if we ever wondered why he went nuts, don't wonder anymore. Or even the way she freaked out when she found out that they were building a new highway, but it was not going to be near the motel.
I should have killed you in my womb.
It's not his fault that the city doesn't want to build a highway right by your motel. I don't know what to tell you. You could just sell the motel and get a job. After calming him down, they ask about Norman's wife. And we find out the story of him and his wife, that she was a psychiatrist at the mental hospital that he was a patient at. Sounds a wee bit unethical to me. In fact, that sounds like something that would cause her to no longer be a psychiatrist. But then once he's calm, they get back to his mother. And the final straw that made him have to kill her.
It began the night she brought that man home for the first time.
Ah! So he was abused and had an Oedipus complex. It's a deadly cocktail. After seeing them together, ew, Norman sees his mother in the morning and she tells him about Chet. How he's married, but as soon as he gets divorced, the two of them are going to get married.
He's also gonna live here in my house.
Well, at least she was gentle about this. Fran tries to stir the conversation back to Norman and why he feels he needs to kill again. Norman says the last time he was caught and sentenced to the mental institution, he was hoping that he would either be executed or locked up for life. All to protect the world from this killer.
Known as Norman Bates.
We all know. And at this point, so did she. It's just been confirmed. Then he goes into the story of his second victim as his mother. An older woman who really wanted him. Why do these women want him so bad? Is creepy a turn-on? Because according to the women that I tried to talk to nervously, no, it's not. Norman excuses himself from the older woman, saying that he has to go tend to his mother. Oh look, he's back. As you can guess, he kills her, throws her in her trunk, pushes the car into the pond like he did with his other victims. But finds out that he didn't do this one in that order. Can't say I feel bad for this one, though. I know some of you will be like, well, she was an innocent woman. No, she wasn't. If a man her age was trying to sleep with a woman his age, you'd all be happy right now. After the tale of killing the pedo, he goes into the story of taking his mother's body. After he killed her, there was just an emptiness there. He needed her. So when he saw his mother dead in the coffin, he took her body, and they had placed a wig on her because of the strychnine affecting her hair. Which explains how he got the wig. I don't know why they felt the need to explain that. I think all of us would have been okay just assuming he went and bought one. As Fran is talking to Norman, she tells him to think of his wife.
She deserves to die.
Okay, again, I think we figured that was who he was going to kill. I mean, I don't think he was planning to kill the McDonald's worker who told him the McRib is gone. The question is, why does he want to kill his wife?
She let herself get pregnant!
Okay, that one I did not guess. He talks about how he told her before they got married, absolutely no kids. He wanted the Bates line to end with him. He didn't want to bring another monster in this world. He believes it was genetic. She did not believe it was genetic, so not only did she get pregnant, but she got pregnant on purpose. She stopped taking her birth control pill and didn't tell him so she would get pregnant.
She says she has faith in me.
Oh, I hate when women say that. Although my wife doesn't say that to me anymore, not after she pressured me into trying to fix the toilet. Didn't work out. Now we finally get into the night that he killed his mother and Chet by giving them some iced tea that he had poisoned with strychnine. I mean, if you really wanted to get back with him, you could have just put sweet and low in there. Wouldn't have killed him right away. It'll just slowly give him cancer, but ultimately, after they drink it, they would have wanted to die. Norman watches as Chet takes a big, huge drink and then excuses himself to the bathroom. Now he watches his mother. Why would you do that? I get it's hot, it's iced tea, it's cold, but now you're just going to be sticky. Finally, she does take a drink, just as Chet comes out dying from the poison. So if he would have come out just a few seconds earlier, she wouldn't have drank it. Which means, Norman's very lucky. Because if she hadn't drank it, he'd have been so grounded. They both do try to get a little revenge, tracking him all the way down to their basement. But the problem there is, they can't really do much considering they are a little busy dying. But now,
Show's over.
Fran's show is over. The movie itself still has like 18 minutes. Norman calls his wife Connie and tells her that since it's his birthday, he's going to his old house and he wants her to meet him there. Even though that is very disturbing and she admits it's very disturbing, she does in fact meet him at his old house. Although that is not the original one. That one you can still see in the Universal tour in Hollywood. This one, though, they filmed this in Universal Studios Florida, so they had to recreate it. She is freaked out, but she does go in with Norman. So imagine how much more freaked out she is when he comes brandishing a knife. And women, this is why you need to stop getting into relationships with men thinking, I can change him. Of course, she runs off. Of course, he knows the place better, so he finds her and corners her.
You're not that person now, Norman.
She tells him it'll be okay. She and her baby will love him.
You give us a chance.
Okay, fine, but the first time that kid backtalks, I'm cutting his lips off. If only. He does change his mind, and they embrace in a wonderful moment. And if I were her, as soon as I got home, I'd get a restraining order. Norman decides he needs to get rid of his past, so he's going to burn the house down. Okay.
I should have killed you in my womb!
Saying maybe he should just stay in the house. He actually gets stuck in the house because in his attempt to burn the house down, first he lit the downstairs on fire, then lit the upstairs on fire. I'm not an arsonist or nothing, but I would say if you were going to do that, either just light the bottom on fire and let it rise, or start at the top and then get the bottom. Just saying. But while he's upstairs, he not only sees his mother and Chet, he sees his other victims. At least the two we mentioned in this movie. He doesn't see any of the other ones from the previous movies. He could have done something, like have somebody that gives us the impression that maybe Marion Crane was there, but I don't know. His only way out is through the basement. Why is that still there? It's not. It's just his mind playing more tricks. But he makes it out. The morning comes. Fire is put out. Firefighters are leaving.
I'm free.
Are you, though? Setting the house on fire, that's still highly illegal.
Let me out of here! Norman, you hear me, boy?
So there you have it. That's the 1990 cult classic, Psycho 4, The Beginning. Sadly, there are still Psycho fans that do not know that this movie even exists. It has no box office to speak of. It was a made-for-TV movie. It was made for the Showtime network. So, when it first aired, if If you didn't have Showtime, you weren't going to see it. In fact, my brother and I didn't see it until a little while later when it was out on video. We had to rent it because we did not have Showtime and it wasn't a free weekend. They really wanted to do a Psycho 4. They really wanted to get a Norma Bates in there. But they were not going to get a theatrical release, not with the way Psycho 3 had tanked. People really didn't like it. In fact, it's still considered like the worst in the series. I would tell those people to find and watch Bates Motel. Like I said, this one was filmed in Florida at Universal Studios, and they had to recreate the motel and the house for these scenes, but they decided not to film at night when the park would be closed because that would be just too difficult, so it was actually filmed while the park was open, meaning that you could be there, get off a ride, and go watch them filming part of Psycho 4. That would have been awesome. For fans of the Psycho movies like my brother and I, this movie was awesome just again because we also got to see Norma Bates, and we were more excited when we found out Norma Bates was played by Olivia Hussey. Most famous for being Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. She was also in a few other movies that you might remember like Black Christmas, but she was very known to my brother and I. We were both big fans of Olivia Hussey, and I feel it's a little sad that I did not know that Olivia Hussey had passed away until I was preparing this review. Now, granted, she didn't pass away very long ago. As of this review, she passed away a few months ago in December. But still, I feel like that should have been news when most celebrity deaths happen. I know she wasn't like a mega huge top billing actress, but she was still famous. Apparently the makers of this movie were big fans of hers as well, because she didn't even have to audition. They called her, offered her the role, and she jumped at it. And honestly, I think she did the role perfectly. Some people said that it was a little over the top, but she was playing an over-the-top character. This was really giving us insight to that this wasn't just simply some weird kid who was obsessed with his mother. His mother was also psycho. And if you watch the movie, you get it. She was psychotic. Of course this kid snapped. One thing that did disappoint me, though, was that there was no references to the second or third Psycho, where this is canon. Because Joseph Stefano, who was also the original writer of the first Psycho screenplay, he apparently did not like Psycho 2 or Psycho 3, so he didn't want to reference them at all. The only reference is when Norman Bates says, "The last time I killed 4 years ago." Even though it had been less than 4 years since Psycho 3 had come out, if you looked at the timeline, yeah, it would have been 4 years in the movie timeline. But that's the only reference. We didn't hear anything about any of his other victims, nothing about his aunt who was pretending to be his mother. He didn't like it, so he just completely ignored all that. However, it is still technically canon to the 3 other Psycho movies. And thankfully, it's not canon to Bates Motel. When it did premiere on Showtime, though, it was a part of a Psycho retrospective miniseries hosted by Marion Crane herself, Janet Leigh. Meaning she was still alive, meaning you could have, like, I don't know, had her do a cameo in this or something. A sad note of this, though, was it was while he was filming this movie that Anthony Perkins was diagnosed with HIV. And there were times that he would leave early during production to go be treated for HIV. This was 1990. Nowadays, you know, HIV is not the death sentence it used to be, but in the 90s, it was. And it would be 2 years later that he would pass away from diseases connected to his HIV. The director of the movie, Mick Garris, said that Anthony Perkins was one of the most challenging actors he ever worked with. Apparently, Anthony Perkins had a lot of opinions on how he felt the character should go. I mean, naturally, he did direct the one before it. Plus, even though Anthony Perkins had done a lot of movies, obviously Norman Bates was the biggest character he ever played. But in interviews before he died, Anthony Perkins did say that he was very happy with how the movie turned out, which director Mick Garris took as a big, big compliment. His words were, "It was very gratifying." Some people, like my brother, will tell you this is his favorite sequel. My favorite sequel is still number 2, but this one's very close. That was a very tough decision to make. And what I like is we could still get a Psycho 5, and it could be that it's Norman's baby. You know, it turns out Norman was right. It was genetic, and now they're killing. It probably won't happen at this point, but it's just an idea. Either way, Psycho 4, The Beginning, is an incredible sequel/prequel that really is underrated and deserves more play. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you get out there and you go check out Psycho 4, The Beginning. So there you have it. That's my movie review this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post videos. And leave a comment I can respond to in my next Comic Corner. Tell me what you thought of Psycho 4 at the beginning. Tell me which of the canon Psycho movies is your favorite. Love you guys.